Call to order the public works session for today, July 28th. Want to welcome all those who are joining us online. Also, I want to acknowledge our folks who are here from the city leadership team who supported the meeting today, and all the citizens that are here to join us. Want to acknowledge our city manager, Stephen Carter.
Thank you, sir.
Our city attorney, Derek Challenger, our city assessor, Mr. Steve Edwards, and our city clerk, Ms. Deborah White. Thank you all for being here. And now I will ask Ms. White, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bryant.
Present.
Dr. Dodson. Mr. Hugel.
Present.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Ms. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Tillett.
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Manager Carter, sir,
Yes, sir.
you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. I have a couple things on the agenda for this evening. The first one is a Main Street update. You know, we are working through the accreditation process for that, and Ms. Michelle Wren is here to provide that update. But after that, we have a discussion about Portsmouth Public School budget discussion, actually. We have to come to an agreement about how we're going to move forward with that. We'll get into that more detail when that time comes. But first, Ms. Michelle, if you and your team are ready, please come forward and talk to us about Main Street.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity to give y'all an update. We were here about 3 months ago, and so we've got lots of new things happening. I'm going to turn the floor over to Liz Pasqualini. I know most everybody knows her, but Liz is actually our Main Street director out of the organization, and so is dedicated to the Main Street program, and so I'm going to let her present. So thank y'all.
All right, everyone.
Welcome, Ms. Pasqualini.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone. Also, shout out to Kitty and Yolanda, who just joined our Main Street Administrative Committee as representatives to this council. So we're looking forward to updating you guys on a more regular basis about everything we have going on. But first, we thought we'd start with the visual. So the city manager mentioned we are pursuing Main Street accreditation, and this is a bit what that looks like. So Virginia Main Street is our local state hub under the Main Street America program. They operate sort of 3 phases of Main Street. When we entered the program in January of 2025, we actually kind of skipped that first step. So we skipped exploring Main Street and entered directly as a mobilizing Main Street community. And that's what we currently are now. October of this year, we'll be submitting an application to become an advancing Main Street, and we'll learn of that in January of 2027. So we're well positioned for that. We're also pursuing Main Street accreditation. That's with the national program. And so May of this year, we became an affiliate under Main Street America. That's after we achieved certain milestones that they had set for us. And then we'll be eligible to apply for Main Street accreditation in January of 2028. And so that's the path we're on. We need to be in advancing Main Street for at least a year before we can apply for accreditation status with Main Street America. So anyway, we've been sailing right along, hitting all of our milestones, and are on track to get our accreditation. Some of this is a reminder from our last presentation, but when we do receive Main Street accreditation, it won't just be for our historic Old Town District, it'll be citywide. And so again, we see a number of commercial nodes throughout the city that we could apply these same principles to. And then we're operating under the 4-point approach with Main Street America. So the economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion. And our presentation today will follow the 4 points of approach. So you'll see the different activities we're doing under each one of these lenses. Also a reminder, we're building out a robust team. This is built on public-private collaboration. So we have a number of city departments that are participating with us. We're also increasing our private stakeholders. And I want to point out, even though it's kind of at our bottom of our list here, our restaurants, retailers, our business owners on High Street have a huge voice in the work that we are doing and informing our activities. We're also tracking a lot of data. So just kind of an update on where we're at. This is 11 months of reporting data, so not quite a year that we've been tracking through Virginia Main Street. We've logged over 5,000 volunteer hours in our district. We've had some new housing come into service and over $4 million of public-private investment into the district, and this includes everything that happened in advance of Sale 250 and all of that investment. We are taking a data-informed approach with everything that we're doing. So we're utilizing this brand new tool. It's called BOOMS Tracker, BOOMS being an acronym for Building Opportunities on Main Street. We are working with a fantastic intern from NSU. He's an urban studies student who's helping us log all of our properties. We have about 73 in there now, a lot more to go. But this is the dashboard that we're building out here. So you can see our Main Street district. The properties that are shaded in blue are the ones we've tracked so far. What we're doing here is logging the vacancy. How many buildings have vacancies? How many parcels are undeveloped? These are, you can splice this data in a number of different ways to help us inform the work that we're doing. This is an internal dashboard now, but the plans with Booms Tracker is actually to turn this out public facing so that developers can see opportunities for investment in your district. So each one of these parcels, we're logging condition and square footage, some history about the project, photos of the properties, things like that, that will be useful as we pursue development into the district. On the design area, so our lighting and security initiative continues. We're growing the number of folks that are interested in building out their lighting and or security operations. We have 5 total projects that have come online, completely done. So on Court Street there, DSG Architects improved lighting both on Court Street as well as behind their building. We worked with Fred down at the Commodore to turn his marquee over to LED light and get out of the neon business. So that should be fully lit at all times, which is great. We worked with Ken and Ed at Way Back Yonder Antiques, improving light and security. Same with CK Salon. And then we just added a new one. The Jewish Museum and Cultural Center added a camera as well that will be tied into the Real-Time Crime Monitoring Center. So these projects continue to move forward. Our building wrap initiative, I hope you all have been down High Street and see some of the improvement on the front of our buildings. We're able to wrap 8 of our vacant storefronts. So this is an image from one of our buildings in the 700 block. Here, we got another example from down in the 300 block. Every single one of these has a QR code that directs folks to economic development to inquire on the properties, and they've had a number of calls already. So we're seeing this work. The reason we wanted to do that instead of directing someone to the property owner or the leasing agency is we really wanted to capture all of those leads. So let's say someone calls, sees this, calls on this property, it's not the right fit. We didn't want to just lose that. We wanted an opportunity to be able to present them with some other options, either here in our district or somewhere else here in Portsmouth. In the economic vitality area, so since we launched Main Street, we've raised close to $350,000 specifically for the program. That includes our High Street Lighting Initiative, which funded the uplighting of our medians, as well as some of the events we've done here and 2 phases of our Unlocking Capital program. Some of that money is actually trailing right down to our business owners. So in terms of reimbursement for lighting work, our building wraps, and what we're doing in Zion, close to $30,000 has gone directly into our business and property owners. And we look forward to launching more programs that will increase that investment. Strategic partnerships. So I think a number of you in the room for our ribbon cutting with the Small Business Development Center. This is really exciting for us. So for the first time, SBDC has a full-time employee here, full-time office here in Portsmouth. It's located at Bloom. It's a tremendous resource not only for our members at Bloom Co-working, for business owners here in the city, but really it's open to anyone in the Hampton Roads area.
I will add too, it's the only SBDC office in a city outside of their office. So we are the first.
Excited about that. So Amber Koska is our new employee. If you haven't met her, she's fascinating. She is an entrepreneur in her own right. She is part owner of the Stockpot Restaurant Group. She's helped to grow that into a 3-restaurant business. She brings a tremendous amount of hospitality expertise, business acumen into our district. And this was particularly strategic for us because, we're leaning on our leakage study that's telling us we need more restaurants in our district. So having this direct knowledge in our district, we're pretty excited about, which is great. We're also doing some physical space growth at Bloom. So in addition to some programmatic work, we're doing some physical space work. This is a shot of 8,000 more square feet that we're taking on at the Montgomery Square building here. It's just behind our Bloom co-working space. This will be home to 42 additional office spaces for entrepreneurs, everything from micro offices on up to suites, office suites, along with some meeting room spaces, collaboration spaces here at Bloom Co-working. This is a taste here of what that'll feel like. I can navigate to the play button. So if you've been in our space before and you enter through our or exit through our back doors, you'll be walking into this space here. We're excited to bring this online. Again, we've had a waiting list for office spaces at Bloom essentially since we've opened. So we know that there's a need and a demand out there. We also know that when we bring more entrepreneurs into a space, it's just increased opportunity for that organic collision and networking, collaboration, problem solving that is so special about co-working space. And so this entrance vestibule here is actually off of Effingham Street, if that helps to kind of orient you to where we are in the building. The other thing about these office spaces, they'll be completely closed-in spaces. So when you're in Bloom, we have glass kind of open offices, but we're seeing a much more demand actually for closed spaces. And so the build-out that we've designed here really speaks to that demand in particular. Great. Also under economic vitality here, so we mentioned bringing SBDC into our building. That was made possible in part through a capacity building grant we brought in through Unlocking Capital. So Main Street has really powered that opportunity for us. That grant is also responsible for our building wrap initiative. It's laid the groundwork for where we're going in the future. And it's allowed us to secure an additional $110,000 in pre-development services into Old Town. The idea with Unlocking Capital is really to pave the way for investment into our district. So a pipeline of projects that are investable along High Street. And so that's what we're trying to foster through Unlocking Capital. We were able to apply for our share of some funding. We were the highest awarded applicant of the 6 that applied. So we're pretty excited about that. And where we're putting that money is actually in the Zion Church development project here. So to help orient us, this is along High Street between the 600 and 700 block, split by Green Street here. This is 7 contiguous parcels that have been vacant since 2007, since the Zion Church fire, which took out some surrounding buildings as well. When we explored this, we just saw this as the greatest opportunity on High Street to have some real impact. And it's had a number of failed attempts to redevelop over roughly 20 years here. And so by investing in this space, and we list out some of where that funding is going, we're de-risking the capital investment that we hope to follow here. And so what we're looking is for residential mixed-use project here. Some of the things we're hoping for are a continuity of retail along High Street. So like when you're walking on High Street now, you're walking by shops and restaurants, and then you have several vacant lots, and then you pick up again with more shops. We want to see a continuity of retail along High Street. We're also looking for, we understand we have a parking challenge on that end of High Street. So we're hoping to solve some of that with this project, as well as just continue to increase the density here in Old Town. If we have more feet on the streets, more people to shop and dine in our district, that is ultimately a good thing. And so we have a number of different areas that our funding is going into, at the end of this, the culmination of and the scope of that project will hopefully bring some strong investors in to push this project forward. All of this is funded through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation through Main Street America. So that's that project there. In the world of promotion, we're excited to roll out our brand initiative for Old Town and for Main Street Initiative, the High Street Happens. The idea here is really that it's a happening place, right? Old Town is a vibrant, active, happening space. We're full of events, new things to see, new things to experience. You must come back over and over and over again. So this is very preliminary. We're waiting still on like the colors, the visual identity, the logos, all of those things are still in development, but this is the brand name, a little sneak preview to what's forthcoming.
And then just a note too, we're like working with Peter. So this is not something we're doing by ourselves separate, which I think that's one of the things Main Street brings to this is that so often for so many years, like groups go out in silos and they're branding and doing stuff where they're kind of representing the city, but it doesn't. And so working in lockstep with the city, we're making sure that the city's brand is forward too and it all connects. So that it all kind of seamlessly goes together. So we're not like renaming High Street and renaming anything else. We're just creating initiative that has then some type of marketing power behind it so people can identify. And again, working with Peter to make sure that it's in lockstep with what the city wants with brand forward. And so that we're all working towards the same goal.
And if I could add to that, I think one of the great things that we witnessed when we went to Greenville, everything was contiguous, right? I mean, the marketing from the city side, and I often tell people the city's role isn't necessarily to run the programming, it's to be in support of, right? We want the private sector to step up because ultimately you've got the real skin in the game in terms of business, growth and development, creating more people on the street. Certainly that's what the city's vision and goal is, but I truly believe, and I think we need to embrace this even more, the public and private partnership aspect of it is where cities are winning. And if you go to any city that I've been to, and Michelle, I know you and Liz have been to a number of them, you can see that cities and private sector are working together collaboratively to bring these kind of results. Is that fair?
100%.
Good.
Yes,
Thank you.
Perfect. So also under the promotion heading, we have relaunched Ports Events. So this is a subsidiary affiliate of the Portsmouth Partnership. It's our event management company. And now we're working on a catalog of events to really activate our district. What we've done under First Weekends is really take a look at what's already working well. So First Fridays, great. First Saturdays, great. We've rolled them into one event, First Weekends, and so we're working with the city to market those sort of events that are happening under the umbrella of different organizations under one collective heading, and something that's easier for folks that are outside of the city to understand what's happening in our district. High Street Fest, we launched the first one last October. We worked with the city to co-brand Sail 250 with the High Street Fest brand as well, and we'll be coming back October 10th for this year's fall Oktoberfest. And then we are in the planning for what celebrating the holidays in Old Town looks like, but that's something else that we are taking on under our Ports Events umbrella. We've also expanded our team here too, so we're excited to have brought on Kelly Arsenal to help us with event management. That is a job in and of its own. It's a beast, it's a mammoth, and she has a ton of experience in the industry, so she's just a huge win for our team to be working with Kelly. DORA activations are a big part of the promotion we're doing through Ports Events, and so just a reminder that DORA is our designated outdoor refreshment area, which we've blankets over our Old Town district. We did this for the first time back in October of 2025. When we launched this year's events, we started our first multi-day DORA permits, and those are falling under our First Weekends. And then we did a 4-day event with the city for Sail 250. So these are all sort of in collaboration with the city. But we've also had a lot of requests from outside of our organization to use the DORA, and so we've put a process in place to make sure that when we do that, it makes sense, it aligns with our Main Street goals. We worked with an outside firm called Grass Fed, like an event firm out of the Outer Banks, to do a permit just a couple weeks ago for the Old Town Shakedown in collaboration with one of the shows at the pavilion. We also worked with Portsmouth Pride. We didn't have to pull an individual permit for them just because it fell on one of our first weekends, but we did work with them to expand our footprint, expand the hours to make it something that made sense for that event as well as for the downtown district. And so these seem to be working great, problem-free, knock on wood, and we're looking forward to expanding our DORA activation. Also under the promotion categories, we're launching a volunteer ambassador program for the district. This is something that, when we look at other Main Street districts that are operating well, they're using this model, we see that as we increase our activity level, we also need to increase our volunteer support for the work that we're doing. So really a focus here around hospitality, greeting guests, welcoming visitors, helping them navigate our district, making sure our district is clean and welcoming for folks, and then also having a safety focus to experiencing Old Town. We want these folks to be highly visible, well branded for our district, and really, being the eyes and ears of our downtown. When we put some folks out on the street, we can be more proactive instead of reactive. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on in that capacity. We've had quite a bit of interest, so we have an info session coming up at the end of August. Quite a bit of interest for that already, so we're excited to roll that out. This really kind of concludes where we are. I just wanted to bring us back to just kind of what the Main Street approach is, what it's all about. Remind you all that City of Portsmouth is now a Main Street America affiliate community and on our way to bigger and better things. With that, we are happy to take any questions.
Mayor, before we get started, could I ask you guys to do a couple things for me?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
One
sir.
is, you kind of jumped into what you're doing. Tell us who you are. What's Main Street?
Oh, sure.
Why is that a benefit to Portsmouth?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Main Street is really, such an easy fit with some of the other things that are happening under the umbrella of the partnership. So through Bloom Co-working, growing our entrepreneurial base, it makes sense to find space to put them, put our businesses out onto High Street and into Old Town. It's a really sort of clear fit between Bloom Co-working, Bloom Market, the work that we're doing there, and really the work that partnership has been doing for years around redevelopment and reimagining space here in Portsmouth. I know Michelle can speak to that.
Yeah, really Main Street's a framework for economic development, and it's a framework for private-public partnership. I think that's to its core, right? So what does economic development look like in a small town? How do you restore small town? It's how it started with small towns, and now they've grown the footprint to sizes of Portsmouth. But historic preservation is at its core, so that was the first piece. Beautiful old building stocks that need to be refurbished and then need to be reinvented, and then doing that, and then along with investment from the private sector and investment from the city, and then working together to brand and to create an atmosphere. And so, in a nutshell, it is economic development at its core and public-private partnership. And again, fits really nicely with the partnership. That's why we were able to skip 2 years of training, is because the partnership's been doing this since 1948, working with the city as the private sector and looking at the city as into what are the needs, how can we help, how can we support, and have done that in lots of different ways: land use, redevelopment, events management, just whatever the need was at the time, throughout different decades. The partnership's kind of stepped up and done that through business leadership. And so again, I think that's what Main Street models too, is that works.
One thing I'll say too is, when we do achieve Main Street accreditation, it's not like, okay, we did it, we're done.
Oh, no.
Main Street needs constant nurturing of your district. And I think maybe that's a place where Old Town, it had more of a hands-off approach, and it shows. And so we're coming in and we're putting that energy and intentionality behind it, but building out the framework to sustain that continued focus, to allow the district to evolve and grow over time and retain that vitality that it needs.
Yeah, because we have to we have to show data every year. Like, you have to not reapply, but reaffirm that you're still doing the work to keep the accreditation. It's not just, it's like continuing ed, right? You have an accreditation, you have to keep doing your continuing ed.
Sure.
I think the other thing that's really nice about the Main Street framework is it builds the framework for again, city investment and private investment, and there's a formula to it, and that it's all data driven. And so you've got years of this data to show this is the formula and this works.
Yeah.
You tailor it to what your needs are, but I think that's the other benefit, is to have a proven framework that you can lean in on and trust.
Very good. Councilwoman Thomas, and then Vice Mayor Moody.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation and the work that you all continue to do for Main Street Initiative and the economic growth of that district. Two questions. One, exactly, I know we had a discussion before, where does Main Street end? Because I know we were talking about if it really goes across Effingham or not. Can you give some information about that?
Yeah, so we've defined our district as Effingham to the waterfront, and then along the waterfront between the love sign and the pavilion. And so
Okay.
it kind of creates a T shape. That said, we have made some investment that is just outside of our district. So the lighting initiative, for example, uplighting the medians. When you look at just like the physical infrastructure of the district, those medians continued into the 800 block, where Effingham is at the 700 block. It didn't really make sense for us to not continue lighting there, and so it's a soft boundary. We've also really, through Main Street, have identified that you need to kind of start small and be very concentrated and focused with your efforts. So along High Street, we're capturing just to Queen and King right now. That's not to say we're not working. We have a couple of restaurants that are just outside of that boundary, and we very much consider them part of the district. And so we have a defined area and then some flexibility.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea would be to start the investment in a concentrated area, see that improvement, and then move the boundaries out, which we have the flexibility to do.
Okay.
But you don't want to start like with huge boundaries and then start piecemeal and stuff, because then people can't see the impact, right?
Okay.
So if you start small, you can really see an impact, and then you can watch that impact grow.
So the thought then, like you said, I guess, is to move this framework once it's developed in this radius to another neighborhood, or take this model or something to another
I
neighborhood.
think
Is
it's
that
the
correct?
model, it's
Okay.
the lessons learned.
Okay.
It's the ability to kind of steward or shepherd that
Okay.
work.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, citizens, I know you've been working with the business owners on Main Street, High Street. How can citizens have input to some of what's happening in development and so forth?
Yeah, we'd love that. So we do have representation from the Civic League in Old Town on our district committee. Certainly, I think through our ambassador program, I think that would be a great way. But we'd be open to talking to folks.
Yeah,
that
I think it would be good to, just for citizen input, especially because although, the entrepreneurs, economic development, Old Town Civic League, of course, there's citizens across the entire city that shop on that street, that visit that street, that visit Old Town. So I think it would be important to get their voice as well, because they might not be a part of the Old Town Civic League.
One thing I'll say is, the development to the strategies that we are now working through came through both some intentional focus group work and some survey work that was done
do
probably
kinda
about
remember
6
that
months
early
ago.
on. Yeah, okay.
And I think there'll be opportunity to kind of renew some of that surveying and things.
So, and I'm asking this because citizens have asked, once they heard about Main Street or about High Street Fest and it being a part of, this initiative under the Ports event or Portsmouth partnership, how can they be involved if they're not So how, is it through the volunteer ambassador program, and how do they become a part of that?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Send them our way. Yeah,
Just send them.
yeah, we'll find a way to streamline that, perhaps.
Is it on the website? I haven't looked.
So I will say the Main Street Initiative we're so new, we don't have a website
Okay.
just yet, but that'll roll out
Okay.
with our brand and things. But yeah, certainly we would love to kind of one-off those, and then we'll
Yeah,
figure
and we
out
can add, we'll add something to our website once we've got that branding piece to
Okay.
have a landing page, so just to gather information. But right now, you just send them to
Then just-
like
okay.
our email. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Vice Mayor Moody, sir, you have
Thank
the
you,
floor.
Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. It's good to see things that are happening. But as some positive changes happen, how do we convey that this is part of Main Street? And it kind of goes back to the city manager's statement. If somebody stopped me on the street and said, hey, Bill, tell me what's Main Street? Is there a concise statement that we can give, like the elevator speech on what Main Street is?
Yeah.
Is it marketing? Is it a brand? Is it a template that we're following to make positive changes?
Yes, I think it's a proven methodology to the work that we're doing.
Right.
And that we're implementing it here in Portsmouth in a way that allows the uniqueness of our city to shine, right? What makes Old Town special to shine through. But it's using that four principled approach. Michelle had mentioned the historic preservation, the walkability, the placemaking. It's all of those things, this proven method. But it's not rubber stamping. We want Old Town, the uniqueness of Old Town to shine through.
Sure.
And I'll say we are being intentional. So when you look at the building wraps, they say Main Street America on them. Once we roll out with our High Street Happens brand, you're going to see that on all the things that we're doing, things that you can point to say it's this, right?
But as things occur, like the improvement in the lighting, transition to LED lighting, how can we convey that that's part of what's happening with Main Street? Is there a way that we can communicate that in a broad fashion so citizens can get buy-in
Yeah.
and some enthusiasm on what Main Street is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a proven economic development tool that we're leaning into the state and to the, broad U.S. to bring to Portsmouth to get reinvestment back into the city.
Yeah, and I think the more that we can get that changes are happening, that I would think that would be conducive to getting more buy-in from the private sector.
Yes. Are you, Mr. Mayor, you think just more of our storytelling about the work that we're doing in a more
Yeah.
public-facing way?
Or
And
just like you said, like a quick, how to explain it quickly, because this was,
Yeah, whether
Not
it's
quick.
social media, everybody's on social media, whether it's social media conveying that, on X or any of the other platforms out there.
Sure.
I think the more that we get that out, the citizens will know that these changes are a result of Main Street.
right.
Absolutely.
The city's buy-in with Main Street.
The work that, we've got city departments, city money, and private investment, and, volunteers, right? So it's a combination. I mean, I think that's the biggest message too. It's not just one thing, right? It's the municipality working hand in hand with the private sector to get change moving forward.
Right.
So it's a united vision as to what the district will look like.
Well, and what it looks like on some of the changes that are happening is excellent. So keep up the good work.
Councilwoman Bryant and Councilman Hugo.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, ladies, for a wonderful presentation. I think Vice Mayor Moody hit on something that came up in the day-long work session that I attended with you all a few weeks ago, which was talking about sharing the story more so that the community understands what the program is. And I do want to say that diagram you put on the first page is extremely helpful, even to me, and I've sat through several of these meetings, so seeing how we're at the state level versus the national level and what that process is. I wonder if because we jumped a level and got right into it, maybe we didn't have the groundwork of understanding the full layout of the program, which is okay. I mean, it's wonderful that we're ahead, but I think this helps us better understand, and this will help us better tell the story along with you all so that the community can understand.
And we
But
can
we-
give y'all bullet points too. Like, we can certainly share like some just like pieces you can say to message, right? You know.
Sure, yeah.
Definitely.
But we did talk in that meeting about having more events, and now that you're underway, having some more events and things that help share the story so that people understand. I just wanted to add a couple things that I took away from that meeting with you all when the national and the state folks were in town. We talked about the Zion project and how that's different than something like the waterfront redevelopment. And in my notes I have that infill projects are very different than redevelopment projects. And the suggestion was that we keep those going regularly. I mean, every 20 years or so, being regular, because a lot of the staff experience is lost as staff transitions and turns over. So it's good to pass that working knowledge down to staff with those infill projects because they're very different than redevelopment projects from scrap. Also wanted to check the median lighting. Is that working now? Okay. Maybe Mr. Carter, you could update us on that. There was an issue with the median lighting I have in my notes from before even sale 250. That is it working in the 700 and 800
I
blocks?
believe so, yes.
But not
We have some
closer.
There's electrical issues in the
median issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Because all of that lighting is wonderful. We've worked really hard to get through some public safety issues in that district, and so if it's a fix that we can do, we certainly want to see that. There was one other thing, the lighting. We're having the regional rev up here also, which is a cool thing. I'll try and explain it. You guys let me know if I didn't hit the nail on the head, but being on the eastern coast of Virginia, we're in a region of other fellow Main Streeters, and we will be hosting them in our community in the fall. Is that right? In September? So pretty soon.
15th.
In September. So maybe you could add a little bit to that, because it's always nice to have visitors in town. And what I learned from the day spending with you guys was there's so much information that comes from having outsiders come in and look at us through their eyes and see what we have and really give us a lot of credit for the work that we're doing, but also indicate what's next.
Yeah, thank you for that tee up.
Yeah.
So we are part of a community of 11 total municipalities that are mobilizing Main Street, but the Main Street network under Virginia Main Street between exploring through accredited is pretty massive. And so on a quarterly basis, they do rev ups, they're training opportunities, networking opportunities. So we'll be hosting a regional rev up here in Portsmouth, which is a nice way just to highlight our district to other Main Street communities. We'll be taking them, they'll be at Bloom for some training, but we'll be taking them out into the district as well to explore, see, to shop, dine, all of the things. So they'll be with us for a full day.
Yep.
Thank you all for the work that you're doing. It's really exciting to see it all coming together, and very optimistic about where it's headed.
Appreciate it.
People.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks again for the brief, and thanks for your hard work on this. So my understanding is, depending on where we are in the progression on the state side of the line and on the federal side of the line, you got to get to certain levels to unlock grant funding.
Mm-hmm.
So have we unlocked grant funding yet, or
We sort of pre-unlocked
Yes.
some
Okay.
funding, is
Yeah.
what I would say. So our Unlocking Capital Grant, we're the only non-accredited Main Street to receive those funds.
In the nation.
And so it's a pilot program through Main Street America. It was an RFP that went out to multiple states. Virginia is one of 2 states that was awarded that contract. And then we're one of 3 municipalities in Virginia that were selected to pursue that track of funding. And we're top of the class. We brought in the most. We're pretty excited about it. But again, that was a program for Main Street America accredited communities that we kind of snuck into there.
That's $180,000. So 70 of it was the first piece, and that's how we added the SBDC office. So that was the, increasing capacity, and then the 110. None of that comes to us. We are really we're deploying all of that into the Zion project. So we don't retain any type of management fee, nothing. It all goes directly into pre-development funds and into the district, and to get those 7 parcels back on track. We've applied for 2 other grants now that we're in this stage of Virginia. So a community business launch grant, and then community vitality grant. So 2, I think one is 15 and the other, it was 60,000.
60.
Yeah, so we're waiting to hear on those to see, and then again, those will be initiatives that will go directly into development of the district. One was kind of a food incubator type project. So again, leaning into our leakage study and knowing that the district could support at least 14 more restaurants, knowing that we have restaurants that have kitchens that are vacant. That's why we kind of picked this restaurant incubator type thing, which we will try to do regardless of the funding, having Amber on board, look at how we can do that without the state funding, and see what else we can do. But the state funding would be very a nice jump start.
So mobilizing on the state side gives us the opportunity to apply for state grants. When we move up to advancing on the state side, does that even offer more grant opportunities?
It's the tiers.
It's the tiers of grants.
So I think it's the same grants that are open, but you can apply for more funding.
Okay.
They're bigger buckets.
Because
so-
you're a proven entity, right? So it's a better investment for them because you've been in the program longer. So it's, to them, you're a little more stable, you're, able to deploy the money better.
Yeah, so I think as we're telling our story, to go back to the Vice Mayor's question, what's this all about? At least a part of what this is all about is allowing us access to other people's money to do things inside the community that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do if we weren't in the structured program. I mean, we can brand Main Street, but that's not the same as being in this program that actually opens the door to allow us to apply for other people's money.
Yep.
Is the same, so I guess on the federal side, normally we wouldn't be able to apply for federal grants until we were accredited, but you snuck in.
You snuck in.
We did.
Yeah, and it was an opportunity that came by because one of our other Main Street communities actually dropped out.
Yeah.
And so they had...
State of Virginia. They lost their executive director, and their board didn't think that they could fulfill the grant. I was like, I'd like to meet that board. Who says no to $70,000 that I can't figure out how to run a program? But again, boards are volunteers, so we'll give them grace. But that opened the door for us, and so we applied with a couple other communities. And again, I think that just goes to the strength of the relationship that we have with the city, that we have with this particular council, and that we have with the municipality, because that strengthened our application. And then also, I think just the strength of the partnership, again, doing the work since 1948. We're very different than other Main Street organizations. Most of the Main Street organizations, that's a newer nonprofit that's come together, and instead we've got a nonprofit has a proven track record of change and also the ability to raise money. And then also to deploy the funds, because the other piece to that too is, again, it's a national grant, so they want to make sure that who they're funding, they know how to deploy the funds, and they also know how to accountability for the way the funds are being deployed. So that's how we got in, which was a great opportunity. And then we presented at the National Main Street Conference, and everybody's like, wait, you're where and how did you get all that money? Like, there was a lot of sidebar to me, like, how did you do that? I was like, we were just, literally in the right place at the right time. And, again, just having the benefit of a long-standing organization.
And my other question's kind of a traffic cop question. So when we did Sail 250 ports events, wasn't yet.
No.
And so the city was the traffic cop for who was doing what and where they were doing it and how all that was going to come together. So now we got ports events, and we got a good problem. The good problem is we got more things that people want to do than we necessarily have weekends for people to do them. And so I know we occasionally end up with more than one thing being asked for from the city on the same weekend, kind of in the same place, and so somebody's got to be the traffic cop to make sure that we don't say yes to Sally and yes to Joe, and all of a sudden Joe and Sally are both planning on using the corner of High and Green Street for a stage to do something. Is that envisioned to be ports events being the traffic cop, or the city continuing to be the traffic cop? How's that going to work? Have we thought about that?
That's a good question.
Well, I think actually this is always going to fall on the city, because you got to go through permitting process.
Okay.
You can't do anything on the streets. Even if they're running it, they can't do it on the streets without a permit from the city.
Okay.
So the city's always going to be the traffic cop for things happening at the same spot at the same time.
Okay.
But I think where we can lean in is like our relationship, right, as ports events and the city like deploying us, right, under contract, hey, we want you to do this, and then us working in tandem with the city department, which is Parks and Rec, to say, here's what the calendar looks like. So that will help kind of put some things, like bring some more cohesiveness to the events that are happening, and branding, working with marketing and things. And so then I think that helps the city make decisions as to what's happening and what's not happening in a more cohesive way, and a more brand forward way. I think that will be helpful.
Add is with a Main Street lens to doing events. We don't want to just do events for the sake of doing events. We want to do events with intentionality, and we want to do it in a way that increases the viability of our restaurants and shops. And so that's very much the lens that we have when we say decide what event and how it's run. You know, all of the logistics of an event really just comes down to, is this going to drive business in this district? Then that's worth investing in.
But on the second hand, like you've got your Sunset Thursdays, right? That's city run, city event, that should still happen too, right? Because that's a huge benefit for the citizens. And so, but that event's done completely at a different lens than an economic development lens.
Yeah.
That's for the benefit of the Portsmouth community and the Portsmouth citizens,
Right.
not necessarily an economic development engine. So they still run in tandem, and they still work really well together, but there's just two different ways to do events. They both have a place, and they both should be happening.
So is the city the keeper of the Dora, or are you guys the keeper of the Dora?
We're the keeper of the Dora, but
Yeah.
it goes through the city to be.
So there's another one of those traffic cop things where somebody wants to trigger the Dora and shut down a street, and
They come to us.
okay.
Yeah. And then that's just where communication comes
Yeah,
in, right? Like if,
yeah.
if Renee and Mark, if the Parks and Rec get a application where somebody says, we want to use the Dora, they're like, well, do you have permission? Is this, does this meet the criteria? And then we've got an application for that now. Like, yes, do you want to use it? Does it meet X, Y, and Z? This is how it's deployed. And then it's still up to Parks and Rec to say, yes, this works for us too, right? So it's a dual decision. It's not just, an organization can't come to us and say, yep, we're going to have an event and we're going to use the Dora, and we say, okay, and then they go do it. That's not how it works.
Okay.
In the same respect that the city, but of course, if the city asks to use the Dora, I don't see a circumstance where we'd say no. It would be sure, how, what, and that's kind of like Sale 250, right? Sure, and how can we help? What do you need from us? What does this look like? That's how the first weekends came about. So, the museums, Dr. Benitez is like, I don't like serving alcohol, this group serving alcohol during First Fridays. Can we use the Dora and rethink this? And we're like, yes. And so that's what started that conversation. So, great collaboration, right? And then it was like, but how can we make it bigger, right? So we've already got all of this going on. So what does that look like? Let's make the most out of, a pool we can pull for 2 days. We only get X amount a year. So how can we make the most out of that? And then And then we bring in tourism and go, well, how can we create a destination? So we've got Friday travelers, people coming through Hampton Roads to go elsewhere, even to Virginia Beach. How about stop and staying in Portsmouth for a Friday night and then going to your vacation on Saturday, because we've got all this going on first weekends. And that's, that's how that all started, but it's a conversation. And it's how can we use this to the best benefit of the city and to, everybody involved.
Yeah. And my last comment's on the volunteer ambassador program. So I know when we were in Greenville, they had an ambassador program that was offered to every business along their Main Street. Are you guys doing the same through OTBA or something, so that?
What do you mean offered to the business?
Well, so in my recollection in Greenville, if you worked in a Main Street business, you got put through the ambassador program.
Oh, yeah.
In order to teach you as a shop owner how to not just sell knives, but how to sell Greenville.
Yeah. And that it was so apparent. They all drank the same Kool-Aid as.
Yeah, so I think
sung the same
what you're
song.
talking about would be phase 2 for us. So what we're talking about is gearing up a group of people that are really knowledgeable about the district, can go out and talk to people about, you want to get ice cream, let me tell you where to go, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is like a hospitality certificate for employees, and that is on our radar too, and probably forthcoming. We're not quite there yet. We are going to be doing some training with our restaurants around the DORA permit, and so I think that would be a nice continuation of something like that. But yeah, not quite in the works just yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Bragg.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add one thing. I know we've talked quite a bit about the grant that you all were able to get for the Zion project. And one of the things that we talked about in the meeting a couple weeks ago was the significance of why that particular project was chosen, because the grant is focused primarily on equity, and that is a significant piece of land on High Street. So could you just, for the council, review that piece of why that grant is really, really important for us and what it means for our city?
Yeah, I'll say, to start off with, Zion was not the top of our list in terms of projects, just because it was sort of the scariest of all the properties we were considering. So we were looking at vacant or underused properties to invest pre-development services in, and this was the one that was like, it's just a blank piece of land. Like, there's not even a building here to rehab. It's had several false starts in terms of redevelopment. So, if it's failed once or twice or 3 times, are we really going to take another bite at that apple? But ultimately, it's the one that made its way to the top. Yeah, certainly with the unlocking capital, right? It's how do you bring capital investment into your district? And we need to recognize that there are populations that are historically marginalized and disconnected from capital. And so to build an equity lens into the formation of capital makes a lot of sense, right? And that's what Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is funding with us. And so the fact that the Zion Church is the first African-American owned parcel in that district.
The longest owned.
Yeah, African-American church, that put another lens in terms of why this project ranked so highly with the unlocking capital folks. And Dr. Turner's been a fantastic partner with us.
Great.
His vision for what this looks like really aligns closely with what we're hoping to see for the district. They're thinking big, which is great. I think it's kind of unprecedented to have that much land, 7 parcels all connected. And we've had some really encouraging meetings with different city departments. It spans over Green Street there, and there's some really interesting ways that we can pursue how to connect those parcels a little bit better. And so, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things, go ahead, Councilman Tillage. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank you all for the hard work that y'all do to put on High Street Festival that we just had. Was it last month, I guess? Time flies so fast. It was great to see the businesses and the citizens come out and engage and really to stimulate a lot of our local businesses. I know, of course, it's still it feels like only the second High Street Festival that you all have put together, but is there a plan on how we can incorporate, kind of expand the door footprint just a little bit? There were a couple businesses that were kind of outside of that perimeter that had expressed some interest of wanting to participate. in all the festivities and economic opportunities.
Yeah, so the overall DORA footprint covers our Main Street district, not really along Crawford, but along all of High Street. We activate different parts of it at different times. The first weekends, actually, we launched into that pretty tightly. So we were looking at the PAC and the activities going on around the PAC. Our poll for this weekend, so we have another first weekend coming up this Friday, Saturday, incorporates the 300 block for the first time. And so, it's one of those things we don't want to grow bigger than the event can sustain. We can pull that for our entire district all the time, but if you take a concentrated group of people and spread them out through a district, it doesn't really feel like an event so much anymore, or a well-attended event. And so we've tried to kind of grow the footprint of the DORA along with attendance of events. And so as first weekend grows, that's the intention, is that we'll grow the footprint there. We are sensitive, though, that, it's the same restaurants that are benefiting, and, we want to make sure that everybody benefits from the DORA activations.
And then the other piece too, so we will reapply this fall. So like for the upcoming High Street Fest, that'll be a new year of a DORA permit. And so looking to kind of loop in like Lodge, is a good example. And then
Charmin Manors
on the other side. They're just missing by a block. So we can draw and circle them in. We didn't realize we could do that the first time we applied, and also was scared, like we thought we had to pull the whole thing the whole time. So, and again, it's a new permit, so we've learned a little bit from that. So we can actually kind of draw and scoop in some of those businesses, because I hate that they're off the footprint. So we're going to do that, and then that way we can figure out how to kind of activate and safely. We don't need a road closure necessarily, but then to still pull them into some of these events and figure out how to activate them.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the effort that you all have taken to invite those businesses to be a part of committees and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
But the feedback has been good.
Good.
And I appreciate y'all's effort in doing that.
Yeah, no, we want everybody's voice and everybody involved, because again, it takes everybody's buy-in to make it successful. We're always going to have the one or two naysayers, but if it's just one or two out of the whole collection, then we know we're doing something right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, guys, what I really want to say is this is exactly the vision of our future. You guys represent an accelerator. I've been a lot of places, most recently when I was down in Long Beach, California, and I visited their business improvement district. And this is kind of where they started years ago. This is the future blueprint. And when we talk about this program, the Main Street program, I remember when I had the privilege of meeting the group that came to talk about wayfinding and different things. And remember, we took the tour, and one of the things that the person that I was walking with said, this is such a beautiful place, but we got to improve on the wayfinding, because people don't know where to go necessarily, and they were saying that from an outsider. The point I want to make is that you all represent an accelerator. Old Town is everyone's neighborhood. Just like in Greenville, they talked about downtown is everyone's neighborhood. And we have to recognize that you have to start somewhere. It's nice to be able to do everybody at one time, but if we make this community, this downtown vibrant and walkable, and people coming back downtown, people living, shopping, retail, that's going to create a sense of place, and more importantly, it's going to bring more people downtown. One of the things in reading the book, from Greenville, what Knox White's vision was in the beginning, all he wanted to do was bring people and business back downtown. That was the number one thing. And how you get there is Main Street, are those kind of programs, And I can tell you, we are fortunate. People don't understand how fortunate we are to have this team and have them growing and reaching out to the community and doing the work. This is heavy work, guys. Our city is not going to be transformed by being complacent. We got to try some new things. We got to think out of the box, but we all got to be together, and it's going to take city and private sector to get there. And I know you get some people talking about, well, it's always Old Town. Well, it's Old Town because it's everybody's neighborhood. And we got to recognize in any city you go, there's a place where people congregate, where they go, and they spread out. That's what Old Town represents. My vision has always been historic, maritime, port, festival city. Those are the 4 words. When you think about Portsmouth, when you come here, that's what you should be thinking about. Festival city. Bring people to Portsmouth, bring them here for the experience. I was telling some folks, just as an example, I went to the concert, the reggae concert last Thursday. And I sent y'all some pictures, so y'all may have received some pictures. Parking was off the chains, the grass was all full, people were everywhere. And I said to myself, this is who we are. So many people said, man, Portsmouth is a great place to come, the concert venue. So we are moving in the right way, very intentionally and very structured. I look forward to the continued success that we'll deliver. Let's encourage our citizens, if they don't know, get involved. The best thing we can do, we can become advocates and ambassadors as council members. I spend a lot of time in downtown every week. I go downtown, I walk from one end to the other. And I do that because I want to be able to tell the story when people ask me what's going on in our city. Here's what's going on. And here's why you need to come down and look at it. So let's continue to progress. Let's continue to push this thing. Anything that we can do as the city, this is a true partnership. We're working collaboratively together to make our city the best city to live, work, play, and raise a family. So thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank y'all for the
everyone.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Mr. Carter, you got
Back
the
on
floor.
me. I'll take the podium for a moment. I don't have a presentation. I was about to say I had one anyway, so let's see what Mr. Fight would do. Topic is the Portsmouth Public School budget discussion. Had a lot of requests for information, provided a lot of information even up until late this afternoon. The way I see it, we have one of 4 options, but it's up to this body to deliberate and let me know what option you prefer. 4 options that I have presented and will continue to present is, number 1 is use of vacancy saving fund. Number 2 is use of anticipated reappropriation funds. Number 3 is the city's budget remain as it is, fixed at the appropriation that was originally established when we passed the budget. And the 4th option is to reallocate some funds that's actually in the city budget for something else and deallocate it from something else and use it for Portsmouth Public School funds. So those are the 4 options that I presented. That doesn't mean that those are all the options, but those are the ones that I presented. However, in order for us to move this forward in our next meeting, I need a one item for us to move into the voting meeting. So with that, I'll hand it back to the mayor and we'll figure out where we're going from here.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. And at this point, the floor is open. Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. So, Mr. City Manager, the first 2 items that you suggested as potential solutions, the use of vacancy savings and the use of reappropriated, basically surplus funds, how would we implement either of those items? Let's take one at a time. So how would we implement? I mean, we know from the data that we've looked at that they budget for 100% staffing all year long, and that budget methodology puts vacancy savings kind of inherently into the budget. And just kind of looking at the history, it looks like we've gone from a couple of $1 million a decade ago to as much as $22 million a year ago of vacancy savings that were kind of included as a budget requirement, and then ultimately, because we had vacant positions, that money was in their budget and ended up getting spent on other things. So we have a pretty good sense. History says there's vacancies, and there's going to be savings tied to those vacancies. How would we implement the use of vacancy savings? Or is it really up to the school board to implement vacancy savings to cover the $2.5 million budget shortfall that we're talking about tonight?
Because we don't allocate line items, we allocate an amount. We can't mandate that they do that. We can make a request to them that they do that. But that would be up to them if they choose to do that or not.
And, okay, so short answer is, while it's a potential solution,
Yes.
we can't direct that solution be
Make a
employed. The
request,
school
we
board would
cannot
have to
direct.
choose that option.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then the second suggestion was to use budget surplus. So again, we don't know, because we haven't seen the end of the year
Correct.
budget report yet, how much surplus is going to be there, but history says the surplus is going to be more than $10 million, less than $22 million. So again, anticipating that there's going to be a surplus, is there a way for us to implement the use of the surplus to solve the budget shortfall, or again, is that a school board thing?
And it's going to have to be a school board thing, because you can't mandate what they do with the money. You can reallocate it, or you can make that a stipulation of reallocating it, but you can't mandate that they do that.
Okay,
So both those first two options is going to take the school board to participate
yeah.
as a solution.
So I think what I heard you say was, when we know how much surplus there is, if there's at least a $2.5 million surplus, we could specify in the give back that the first $2.5 million is used to cover the shortfall or not.
What you can do is stipulate that the or whatever amount we reappropriate, right, is being reappropriated instead of allocating $2.5 million to the school's budget.
Okay, so that is an option available to us, but only if there is
More than
$2.5 million of surplus, and at this point, we don't know what that number is.
Haven't got that number from the school board yet, so I can't say definitely. We can make an educated guess, but that would absolutely be an educated guess.
Okay. But probably a pretty good guess given history.
No one can look at your past and determine your future. So, but I can't. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to the casino and bet on it. No.
Okay.
Councilwoman Thomas, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for providing some background information for us to consider prior to tonight's meeting. The two options that you just discussed with Councilman Hugel, it really sounds like those two options are similar to, and I forgot the order, so the third option, which was do nothing, because essentially, if I'm hearing you right, the two options with vacancy savings or the what did you call it? Surplus budget, reappropriation of the school's extra budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Still would require us saying we're not providing the $2.5 million tonight,
Yes.
and that the school would still have that $2.5 million gap, and they would then have to determine the best method of trying to meet the gap. And that's what I'm hearing, is that, just want to make sure.
That's absolutely what you're hearing, because if we decide one of those two options, the only way we can make that happen is not to reappropriate more money.
Okay, and that's why my recommendation, which I provided through written email as well, is to then take the onus on our side and look at projects through CIP, PAYGO. You explain that, and if you want to explain it for the public, that would be very helpful. To look at those options, because tonight we have the opportunity to meet the need for the school, and that is the ask. I'm going to start right there and let you kind of explain what CIP projects that we could consider, because I know you were going to come back to us, because that's my recommendation. If we're going to truly put on the table providing the $2.5 million gap, which I think we should, I think we should look at budget funding from the city's offerings of what we can maybe delay in our CIP projects.
Okay. Now, what Steve would recommend is not CIP.
Okay.
What I've been recommended to is CIP.
Yes.
CIP is not normally reoccurring funds.
That's correct.
And I think what we're trying to fund for the school system is a salary, which is reoccurring funds.
That is
Can I
correct.
add something to that?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
agree with you completely. That's correct. That would be the same. That would be the same kind of options that we're weighing, even with the vacancy savings. Vacancy savings are not a revenue source that the schools could even rely on for reoccurring revenue. So we're looking at balancing two of the sames to meet today's $2.5 million gap.
Yes, ma'am.
We would have to put something permanent for the future $2.5 million gap, which I have put on the table, and I think we should revisit the revenue sharing formula as a permanent solution for another discussion after this meeting for this next budget cycle. I heard the school board counterparts at their last meeting mention revenue sharing. So I'm not saying that this is a permanent decision. I'm saying this is a one-time decision for today's issue. So I will put that out there.
Okay. The CIP funds that is eligible for this would be funds that is allocated through the general fund. We can't use funds that from our enterprise funds. We can't use funds from grant funded or state funded, because those funds have designated things that we have to do with those. But our general fund CIP projects, and I had given you guys a list of those, are eligible to be reduced and in the amount of $2.5 million if we choose to use one or more of them as a temporary replacement for the $2.5 million that's being asked by the school system. So those projects, can't remember off the top of my head, but I gave you guys a list of those items.
Was that at the, no, that's on, okay, is that at the, what email, today at 4 something?
No, that was one of the originals that had the CIP budget, and then it had specific pages.
I did see that, yes.
With those CIP
Yes.
projects on them.
That was the list that I had asked city staff to consider, because I can't see which ones are PAYGO funded or which ones we could delay.
Well, the ones that are, there's a list that's on that actual sheet for like page 67. I know that one in particular because that is one that is a funded item for trailers, middle school trailers, or
Was there an impact
school trailers
assessment?
was one of those two. I can't remember exactly which one.
And I do remember that one. And I think one of the questions from that email follow-up was the operational impact to consider any project that we will consider from CIP for
ma'am.
us as a council, understanding the operational impact of that, kind of pushing it down by a year to the next budget.
Yes, ma'am. But when you look at that list I gave, it specifically says general fund as the source of the funds.
Let me go
If
pull
it
that
doesn't
up.
say general fund, then that's not a
PAYGO.
project that we could use. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And PAYGO simply means we're paying for it as we're doing
As we go,
it. Yeah,
right.
That's all that means.
Thank you.
Councilman Tillage, then Vice Mayor Moody, and Councilwoman Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. So I too support the option 4, which is taking money from our general fund to be able to address this gap. Options 1, 2, and 3 basically are us not acting. because like Councilwoman Thomas says, it relies back on the school board decision to make those cuts or to find the money within their budget. When we speak about one-time funding versus recurring funding, options 1 and 2,
Yes.
all it's going to do is basically create a fiscal cliff for us in the future. To Councilwoman Thomas's point, when you're looking at funding salary increases through salary vacancies or surpluses, as was made mention, it's not sustainable.
Right.
To me, that is incentivizing the school division not to hire, because year over year, you're trying to rely on vacancy savings to close a gap. And as we know, we're in a crisis all across the country when it comes to getting educators, bus drivers, and school staff in general. And so I don't think it is fiscally smart for us to ask the school board to take vacancy savings to close a gap in their budget. I think that it will force us in the future. It will lead to having to do a tax increase in the future, because that cliff is going to get bigger and bigger, and you're just pushing $2 million into the future, $2.5 million into the future. Also, we have to understand that the vacancies exist because the schools can't hire fast enough. It's not, you can't just snap your fingers and hire X number of teachers or X number of staff overnight. And I want to add that when we gave the money to the school division over the last 2 years to be able to address recruitment and retention, it's working. There are schools in our school division that just a few years ago had a handful of fully credentialed teachers. Today, those buildings are almost full of credentialed teachers. And that was due to the effort and the willingness of this council to fund the priorities of the school division, which was to hire and to recruit staff. And so I think it's doing a disservice to our school board and to our children by not finding ways to put our skin in the game and helping them to bridge this gap. When we speak about collaboration, ever since I've been on the city council since 23, I have asked this council numerous times to let's establish meetings on a regular basis with our school board, where both bodies come together, hopefully to be a quarterly meeting, but for us to have the meaningful conversations with our school board on a quarterly basis to discuss budget, to discuss CIPs, so that there is that active open communication. 3.5 years later, we've still not had those. We've had a joint meeting once a year, which honestly, that's just us listening to the estimate of needs and not really having meaningful conversation. But I think we need to put our best foot forward to have these meaningful conversations in a quarterly way. I don't think that, and this is with no this is not with any disrespect to anyone, I just don't believe that if we're going to take collaboration seriously, and if we're going to take making education a top priority, I think liaison meetings are outdated for this situation. I think we need to bring both bodies together on a quarterly basis so that we are having those conversations about budget CIP needs, so that we can get updates on their status of what their needs are. And we can provide status updates on our CIP needs as well. In addition, the revenue sharing formula, I do believe is a conversation that we need to have after this, because regardless of which option we pick today, it's a in-the-moment solution. It's not going to fix next fiscal year. And so by us looking at this revenue sharing formula, and I would encourage, and I will send my council colleagues and you, Mr. Carter, some information related to the City of Hampton's city school revenue sharing formula that they adopted in FY 1999. So it's tested and true for 27 years. And it reflects a 67% sharing revenue of residential, personal property, and utilities to help the schools get funded. And that way we know the predictability each year of what our schools are going to get. You know, we speak about building trust, we speak about collaborative efforts, but this tug of war that we're doing each and every year, it's tiring, it's getting us nowhere, and I think that it's time for us to really put our best foot forward and to start these quarterly meetings, show the school board that they are our partners and we are not their parental figures, and let's get stuff done. That's supposed to be our motto as a council, is getting stuff done. So let's get it done, and let's bring them to the table. Let's have the conversations that are long overdue and create communication. I think communication has been broken. I think we've seen that over the last 2 weeks. Communication's been broke, and I think that we owe it to the citizens, and we owe it mainly to our children. This is not a win or lose situation, council members. I don't care who wins or loses, because at the end of the day, the children will suffer as a result of adults not being able to come together and make a decision. So I support option 4, and I would hope my colleagues would do the same.
Thank you, sir. Did you want the floor, Vice Mayor?
Yeah.
Did you
Well,
want the floor?
I agree with Councilman Tillage to a point, and that's the joint meeting. You know, we've had recently one joint meeting, I think, of the two bodies. I think this is the very thing that we should meet jointly to work out, so they can understand that we represent the whole city. The school system is just part of it. So I think people, certainly the council members around this table, need to understand that part of it. We represent the entire city. The other thing, I'm not sure the public is aware as they hear this conversation, that our budget was set. This request came in after that, and we're told, I guess rightly, it was caused by the shortfall in the state funding and increase in operational costs. But I think it's also important to understand that they've returned unencumbered money. I think the report that you provided was, what, 63 million in the last 5 years?
That includes unencumbered and encumbered money.
Okay.
At the end of
so
the
that's-
year, when
that's-
they make that request, there'll be money that haven't been encumbered, but there'll be money that they encumbered, excuse me, encumbered near the end of the year, but didn't have an opportunity to spend. So both of those are in the request to give money back.
Yeah, and what's the estimate for this year? Do we have?
We have an estimate. It's in that information I provided to you.
You did, I believe it was $13
I
million.
think it's 13. Is
$13 million.
13.5 is what we are estimating based on May financials.
Okay, so we're estimating 13 million will be returned to the city.
We're estimating that they will ask for a reappropriation of at least 13 million.
Well, why, why can't the 2.5 million come from that?
That is an option.
And that's the option I support.
Councilwoman Bryant.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for all the data that you shared today. I want to touch on that in a little bit, but I want to go back to this point about meetings, and I think to understand the whole picture, we need to go back a little bit to what's happened over the course of the last year, and a lot of us advocating for better communication. So I sent you all an email this week to kind of clarify some points about the liaison meetings, which I think everybody at this table was well aware of what the course of those meetings were, but it's important sometimes to have it down in writing. And just for public record, we have met as joint liaisons 4 times in the last year, and we have all collectively met once in a joint retreat. So I want to add that those meetings were created for the purpose of having conversation at a more direct level. It's great when we all can get together, both board and the council, but that's a lot of people to have conversation. So the intent, like any liaison meeting, is to streamline that conversation and report back to both bodies to have more developed conversation. Councilman Hugel and I have regularly made ourselves available for those meetings, often changing scheduling, often taking last-minute cancellations, but we have really made it a priority with our schedules to adapt and change as needed because we really do want to be present at the table with our school board partners. I have shared my personal contact information with our school board liaisons in the attempt to kind of, hey, I'm new to the council. What can we talk about? I have 3 kids in the school. I'd be happy to come in and attend any events or anything that you have. Try to kind of take a more familiar approach. We have pushed for the joint retreat along with you all. We all recognize that was a need. At our retreat in the fall, we had a very lengthy discussion about school board growth with the council and the partnership that we wanted to create, which led to that joint retreat. We all prioritized that together. I will commit to you guys, I have committed it in email, but I will commit publicly that I will report out from all future liaison meetings in a public work session. Sometimes we are pushed right to 7 o'clock, 7:15, 7:30, and sometimes it doesn't feel appropriate to add on more. But I recognize now that that is not the case. It's very important that we communicate publicly what those conversations are. So I'm committing to you all tonight that will be the case moving forward. Councilman Hugel and I have asked for our staff to set meeting dates with the school staff for liaison meetings this fall. They are currently not scheduled. We have asked for those a few weeks ago, and we followed up in the light of the last conversation in the last month. So we are pushing for those dates to get them on their calendars. They are tentative right now. We haven't heard back.
But
Have
those
we heard
dates that
back?
I advertised,
Yep.
I haven't given them to them yet.
Okay.
So you haven't heard back on those dates because I haven't asked for those dates
Okay,
yet.
okay, but we have asked you
Yes.
to push for a schedule
Yes.
so that we can have those on the calendar. So thank you for clarifying, Mr. Carter. So all this to say, we have certainly, as liaisons, advocated to build a partnership, to better communicate, to get to know our school board better, to work as responsible liaisons. I have looked back in my notes. I have racked my brain recalling, did we miss any red flags on the Pace Center? I'm confident in saying we did not. They were not raised as red flags in our liaison meetings, and this is not to assign blame. This is to say we are all disappointed that the Pace Center, which was meant to meet our education and workforce goals, is delayed. But we are focused on solutions. We are focused on problem solving. I think everybody at this table is jointly focused on those big goals, and I'm confident that this group will work together as a team to continue to work toward those goals and find solutions. So all that background, I think, needed to be stated as we arrive at this budget conversation. Mr. Carter, you shared information today, data that shows that we have significantly increased school funding over the last 3 years in particular. That funding has increased $26 million. Over 7 years, we've increased funding 59%. That reflects council's commitment to education. And that money has gone toward teacher salaries, which the school board stated they needed to decompress those salaries. We agreed, we recognize that. We funded our schools in a way that they could create their salary scale. That funding has led to a decrease in teacher vacancies, which the school board chairman shared with us in our liaison meeting. That is wonderful. I can tell you I have seen that directly with my children at their schools, that teachers are staying, that teacher retention is happening, and it really does matter. It really does make a difference in the day-to-day with our kids. Our teachers are the highest paid in the region, which is wonderful. That is a real feather in our cap, and I'm very proud of that. I would argue that we have increased funding year over year to show that we support education, to show that we value our schools, and that this council supports the needs of our children. I am not in favor of changing the budget at this stage in the game. We have been through a very public process. I would be concerned that we might create expectations about reopening a budget at this stage in the game, and that can play into public trust. We are working very hard to build trust here among our council, among our school board, citywide, and I really want to protect that public process. Happy for any feedback that you all may have.
Well,
I'll say a
before,
couple things.
go ahead, address that.
Two things. One is none to really address the issue that you talked about, other just to what I said, we had not shared that information. I said that because my executive assistant has been in training for the last week. So
Regarding the scheduling of the
right.
meetings?
But Ms. White
Okay.
says that she has sent that information to them, so they do have that information.
So the schools do have the dates that we've requested to meet with them for the meetings in the fall? Okay, thank you. And we're waiting to hear back from them if those dates work.
Yes.
And to make clear, Councilman Hugel and I said, these dates work for us, but we're not rigid in those dates. We have flexibility also. Thank
And
you.
the second thing is, when I was first made aware that there was a problem with Pay Center was the liaison meeting in May. Prior to that, the March and the April meeting, it was touted as, the example project for how projects should be run.
Right.
We did get
Right.
an indication in May.
Right.
And
So
that was the
just make sure
meeting
those
that
two
you
things.
weren't able to attend.
No, but I
So
did
it's just
review
the-
your notes.
Yeah, just the two of us
Yep.
that were there.
I just wanted to make sure we correct that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
That's it.
Appreciate it.
So since everyone has had a chance to speak, I'm going to take a moment to speak. I first want to share some good news. After hearing of the delay on the Pace Center, I called Dr. Marcia Constant, who is the president of Tidewater Community College, and her and I had a lengthy conversation about solutions to assist our children who would not be entering the CTE school, the Pace Center. And Dr. Constant offered up Tidewater Community College's resources, their CTE buildings, their programming for any of our students who was impacted by not opening the Pace Center. After that conversation, I contacted Dr. Patillo, and he assured me he would contact Dr. Bracy. So when we hear of things, and that's in the process, I don't know where it is in the school boards, but when we hear of things like we're not working together, that's just not factually true. And in any relationship, there is people in a relationship, and everyone must participate for the relationship to work. No relationship is one-sided. And I preface that because in our deliberations and dealings as a council, we do have the whole city to consider. But I would submit to you that our 5 pillars are thus, and these are the pillars that we agreed on as a body: getting things done, financial and operational excellence, economic growth, and citywide revitalization, safe, connected communities, education, workforce, partnerships for our future. And so I would submit to you that our 2 highest areas that we commit our funds as a city are education and public safety. For anyone to suggest that this council or any council for the last 10 years haven't cared about education is just not factually true. And the historic information doesn't support that. What I always encourage is everybody needs to come to the table. And if anyone in this room would suggest all of that onus rests with the council, that's not fair. And by the way, I talk to many people in this city. I just got off the phone with our representative at PRHA. We have to be concerned as a council, are we being equitable and fair to everyone in the city? We have senior apartments we have to build, we have infrastructure we have to do, and there's only enough money to go around. Historically, what we have done, which is public information, and it will be available for the public. Historically, what we have done with our schools, we have, when they did not encumber money or spend money, we have reallocated those dollars for the purpose of them to use them for the things that they needed to use them for, without any question or any other complication or complexity thereof. And I really want that to be clear, and I want our citizens to understand that, because there's sometimes this implication that we don't care, or there are folks that sit on this body that don't care about education. I submit to you, in the last, from 2014, we just received data today, we have reappropriated over $100 million to our schools. Now, if you can tell me, and anyone that knows numbers can tell me, that knows finances, if you reappropriate $100 million to any organization, I think you would care about them. The problem or the challenge is, yes, we do need to have a better relationship, but for any relationship to be productive and to work, we are all yoked. When the superintendent came to us and the school board and said, we needed your support, council, to make our teachers the highest paid teachers and to cover the gaps and make sure that we are paying them appropriately, we did that. In addition to that, I've talked to many of the teachers that are in Portsmouth Public Schools today. We are giving out bonuses, we are giving out retention bonuses, we are doing more to retain teachers, and that was the intended outcome. We as a council support education 100%. And I encourage all of our citizens and our businesses to ask those questions that we ask. There is nothing wrong with us as council members asking our school board for accountability on the dollars that they spend. Why? Because those dollars are taxpayer dollars. And all of our taxpayers have to have a stake in the game. So that is why I think when we ask the schools, if you have the dollars, whether you didn't spend them on whatever, if you have them at the end of the day, it's not an unreasonable expectation to ask you to spend those dollars on what is important to your operation, your teachers, your children. And I want to just close out, because I do take somewhat of an affront when we get called out and everyone else is not held accountable. My grandchildren go to Portsmouth Public Schools. And I'm proud. They're excelling in Portsmouth Public Schools. They love Portsmouth Public Schools. But to suggest that anybody on this body wouldn't want to fund our schools, or we don't want to have a better relationship with our school board members, that's just not factually true. And at some point, we have to be courageous in what we're doing. Do we need a formula? Perhaps. Perhaps we do. Do we need to look at how we are doing our CIP projects? Perhaps we do. But that will only occur through intentional, respectful dialogue based on trust. Why is it that I hear a lot of stuff that comes from folks, some folks, not many, but it's a one-sided conversation? It doesn't have to be. And our school liaisons are there for a reason. To Councilwoman Bryant's point, if we called everybody in every quarter to meet, that might not work for everyone. So the purpose of school liaisons being there is to listen and participate in that process and bring back the information to the body so that we can be informed. And I can assure you that has been taking place. Can it improve? Absolutely. But in closing, I just want to make it clear, this is not a divisive game, but the responsibility of all parties is what needs to be indicated here. It is not us against them. It is not, we're not talking, they're not talking. We have a joint responsibility to our children, to our community, to be good stewards of our tax dollars, because there is a finite amount of money. And I need us to all understand that it is not anyone on this council, there are not anyone on this council that is against our schools. That is false, it's not factual, and if folks believe that, then I think we need to have a conversation offline. Thank you very much. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring it back to the question that we have to determine tonight about the $2.5 million gap. And there was a lot of conversation, good conversation that just happened here. But one of the things that I think is important, just for the public, I'm not saying we're not all aware, but I just want to lay out, the $2.5 million is to cover the state raises for the teachers. If we go back and remember, when we were doing our budget, the school board estimate was at 2% for teacher staff salary. The school board, which is why I voted against our budget in the beginning, because I knew that they didn't have enough information to determine what their true budget needs were going to be once the state budget passed. The state budget passed, the state indicated 4%, so that's double the amount that the schools thought they were going to need or be required for teacher staff raises. So that's where this $2.5 million gap is from. I want to also point out, if you all looked at the school board meeting, it's very, as a former school board member, and I always offer my background as serving on the school boards as well as Councilman Tillage, there's a lot of assumptions that are made amongst this body that are not, that you have to have more information to truly make those assumptions, even for history, even when we're looking at the past appropriations, especially from 2021, because we all know what happened in 2021. That was my first year on the school board. That was COVID. There was significant investment from ESSER funds, from state funds, that when you see those large reappropriation numbers, that has some background in that. But I want to get back to this budget. Again, they estimated 2%, the state came back with 4%. They want to meet what the state has set for all of their staff. So they already had the gap from what they estimated and required and requested from the city. Remember, their initial request was around $14 million, and then they came back after some negotiations to $12.8 million, and we as a body in our budget allocated additional $7 million to them. Fine, but now they made additional cuts to get to this $2.5 million just to meet the state required 4%. And I want to go through publicly, because they stated this at their meeting, the programmatic cuts that they've already made to get to this $2.5 million. They've cut Starbase completely. They've cut 3 special ed teachers for early childhood preschool. They've cut 3 reading interventions. They cut 3 Read 180 teachers, 1 per middle school. They've cut 1 Performing Arts Academy teacher for the Performing Arts Academy. They cut in instructional materials for Performing Arts Academy. They cut the student reading tutor program. They cut 1 Section 501 program specialist. They cut 3 clinical mental health counselors. They cut communities and school contribution, and they cut their mindfulness program. So they have made cuts just to get to the 2.5 to meet the 4% state. So that's why I'm saying we can look at some CIP funds, and Mr. Carter, I don't have enough information to determine the operational impact, and that's what I'm asking you to provide to us. But that is my recommendation, because they've made cuts to even meet the 2.5 million to meet the 4%. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Councilman Tillage, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Thomas, for so eloquently stating those things. When we passed the budget back in May, I made a statement of not voting for the budget because of us not knowing the state allocation to our schools. And it was mentioned tonight that our budget is already set. And it is set. But when it was brought to the attention, the body passed it. And there's a $2.5 million gap now, as Councilwoman Thomas made mention, due to the state increasing from 2% to 4%. And when we talk about staff retention of our teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, everybody that works for our school division, that's what this $2.5 million is about. And when we speak about being the highest paid in the region, if we want to maintain that, we need to help to achieve that through bridging that gap of $2.5 million. To Councilwoman Thomas's point, cuts have been made. It was made earlier, and I think on this chart here that was provided to us, there was an asterisk that mentioned in estimating. You know, we're estimating this is what will be sent back. But where's the conversation? the conversation of having with the school board and the school leadership to determine exactly what that accurate number is. And that's where I get back to having the conversations, the more regular meetings with our council, with our school board, so that we can better understand the needs, to have the actual conversations. At the end of the day, we are two official bodies. Regardless of when the meeting is, you send the dates out, they come. And we need to have those conversations so that we can get back on track. We can't keep doing business the way that we've been doing it. And it's not just about this council, and I don't want to focus on this council. I mean, Portsmouth has had a school board, city council debate for well over a decade, way before I even got on city council or school board. And it's time that we stop. We just stop it. And so that's where my proposal in this coming in to do these regular quarterly meetings comes from. In addition, we spoke about reappropriating general fund balances year over year. And I want to note that reappropriating general fund balances should not be treated as free cash. The city manager also stated it in the document that he presented to us, that explicitly warns that these funds are not, that these funds are encumbered, but are not expended and should not automatically be characterized as unrestricted. Having been a former school board member, there are dollars that are related to textbook fund, food services, grant funds, and so to paint the picture that approximately or guessing that $13.5 million is coming back as free money, I think is a false, it's not a fair narrative to put out into the public's eye. Number one, when we haven't had the conversation as a body with the school board to determine, but also not accounting for the textbook funds, food services funds, grant funds, and federal dollars as well. So my stance still remains the same on supporting the 2.5 out of our general fund.
Very good.
Can I say one thing on that?
Yes, sir.
Those other funds that you're talking about are not included in any of the numbers that's presented.
So in your document here, you mentioned that, however, the amounts are relevant to evaluating the relationship between annual appropriations, staff vacancies, expenditures, and end-of-year funds.
Yes.
And so when we speak about these things, we're sitting this here, once again, in an estimating, guessing form. And
Yes, absolutely an estimate.
which is why you put an asterisk there. And so to my point, the conversation to fully understand what is left hasn't been had. And so that is mainly my point, is we're playing with guesstimates instead of actual numbers, which is where the communication aspect has been broken amongst our school board and our city council.
I have made that request of the school board, Dr. Briggs anyway. I didn't send it to the school board.
So
I have made that request. I haven't got that information back.
That's correct.
All I was saying was the textbook fund and those other grant funds and all that, that's not included in any of those numbers that I presented to you.
All right.
Councilman Hugo, and then we need to move on and make a decision.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I want to go back to the Councilwoman Bryant's discussion about liaisons. There were a couple of conversations during our liaison meetings that are, I think, relevant to the discussion we're having right now about we can't keep doing what we've been doing because it ain't getting us where we need to go. So in the liaison discussions, we, both sides, the city side and the school board side, have agreed this isn't working. The budget mechanism isn't getting us where we need to go. And in particular, if you fast forward from where we are today, even 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, we go broke if we don't do something differently. And so we're going to have to do something in a collaborative way, differently than what we're doing. And whether that's a funding formula or a funding formula informed by a bunch of meetings, we haven't figured that out yet, but it's clear that we got to do that because what we're doing isn't working. And importantly, if you look at just the pay raise piece of the budget discussion that we're having with the schools this year, it started out with the superintendent estimate of needs suggesting that the pay raise was going to cost $9.1 million more this year than a year ago. And now with the extra 2% in the state number, that number is 12 million. That's the number they briefed at the school board meeting. 12 million more, and that's just to cover the pay raise. So they didn't have any choice but to go cut the things that you talked about, Councilwoman Thomas, because they're trying to protect the pay raise. Well, I want to protect the pay raise too, but we're headed into unaffordable territory.
Correct.
If you just take that $9 to $12 million and run it forward by inflation, even 1, 2, 3 years, compared to what we, even in the last 4 years, have been able to kind of eke out in order to make things come together. So I think whether it's done at the school board liaison meetings or whether it's done with a quarterly council school board meeting, I don't know what the right answer is. All I know is the only way we're going to get there is to start meeting. And that means when we have meetings, we got to meet. And if you all agree, then I think the number one thing that the liaison team ought to be working on is figuring out what are we going to do about budgeting down the road. Okay, so that's one thing that came out of liaison meetings that we need to talk about tonight. The other thing that Councilwoman Bryant talked to is the pace of the PACE Center.
Just
So there was an issue brought up at the May liaison meeting that the city manager and I attended around payment to contractors and some things that the city manager took action to go look into. That was the first discussion that we had in the liaison meetings about any kind of hiccups that might translate to a delay in opening the PACE Center. That conversation led at the liaison meeting into a discussion that we had around the city has people overseeing CIP, the school system has people overseeing school CIP. Why do we have two entities overseeing the same projects? And the city manager put in front of our school board colleagues at that liaison meeting a draft process that suggested, as we move forward, that we should, for operational oversight, for day-to-day oversight of progress on school CIP, that we, the city, should hand that responsibility over to the folks on this PPS side, so that there's only one person overseeing, there's not two people overseeing, and that way, that if there are issues that come up, it's not somebody thinking somebody else is going to raise the flag, but in fact, the flag gets raised. And so I think if you all agree, I think we should ask the city manager to move out and get that proposal finalized so that we can look at it and then put it in front of the school board leadership and get some agreement that in the future, the best way to handle school system CIP oversight is one or the other, but not both. So I would ask that we consider both of those as things that need to get worked through at the liaison meetings or at joint meetings, but certainly one way or the other, we got to work through them. Now, so then back to neither of those things solves tonight's problem. So I listened to two colleagues who have said I think what I heard, we ought to use CIP to solve tonight's problem.
Tonight's problem.
Okay.
One time.
So
Can I offer something? I don't mean to stop you, but can you finish that? And I want to offer an alternative.
yeah. So what I haven't heard from either of my colleagues is what CIP you suggest that we should cut, trim, shave. I don't know what the right word is, but squeeze $2.5 million out of. Now I suggested that there's a CIP project out there that could solve the problem. but I haven't heard any counter anything. And so I'm interested to know, are we interested in solving tonight's problems with that CIP project, or no?
So because we're running on shorter time, and I appreciate the dialogue, one of the things that I thought about, and I want to share this because I think there's a solution to the $2.5 million today versus what we've just discussed. If y'all remember, there was a risk management fund set up by the city. And the city controlled that risk management fund. The schools had to come and ask for it when they needed it. You recall that, Councilman Tillage? There's about $5 million in this risk management fund. Okay? So I just got with the attorneys on the sidebar. That's why I was talking. I wasn't trying to be rude. Perhaps the temporary solution to meet in the spirit of collaboration, the temporary solution could be to make that 2.5 million eligible from the risk management. This is just an idea. We get that part solved, we get together as a group and we start talking about how we can improve the process, improve the funding. Everybody, I think, can potentially live with that. That won't be, as I just talked to our attorneys, we got to put that together. It won't be a tonight thing. We could we could ask for a special meeting to approve that if it all meets everyone's expectation after they talk to everyone. It's an option. Is that something we could consider, not consider? It doesn't sound like anything we want to look at. What I'm trying to get us to is a solution.
Yeah.
What we've talked about is we want a solution, and we want a solution where we're working together.
It's a Band-Aid.
I know, but what I'm saying is, what I don't want to leave here with, Councilman Tillage made a point, okay. If we all want to work together, if we have some dollars in-house that we can utilize to meet that need today, is what we're talking about, the 2.5 today. I've already heard from this group that there's a desire to look at the funding formula going forward or different funding option. I'm trying to get to yes for everybody where we can be reasonable. If it's about the children and about our teachers, then I think that just presents an option. We can't approve it tonight, but once the attorney and everybody gets back and gets together, we can fast track it and see if we can make that happen and make our schools whole on the 2.5, and then we move forward.
You asking for consensus for that?
I am.
Okay.
Before the consensus, because you mentioned there was some past history of this risk management fund. Can you give me a little bit more, Mr. Challenger, a little bit more background?
Attorney Miller, can you just give us a basic, can you go to the podium and kind of tell us a little bit about that?
About the risk management fund, how it was used in the past, any impacts have taken from it. I just need some more information.
Is dollars there?
Yeah, I just need information about the fund itself and what's the impact, and was there a historical issue with that risk management fund in the past, anything like that?
Yeah, in 2018, I believe, the city took back certain money instead of reappropriating it and placed the money in a risk management fund that's established under the city code for school issues, but the money is held by the city. It was something over $5 million, I believe. That money has just been reappropriated every year in the city budget. And so in order to release any of the money, both the city and the schools would have to agree to the release. So that's the process.
That's really all that would need to happen. We would just have to agree to the release and get that done in the wording or whatever, and we could make that happen. Is that fair or not fair?
I believe so.
I have one more question for the consensus determination. Now I remember. So risk management fund, that's one of the bucket of funds that the schools used in their budget calculation. Is that correct? Like, so do they consider, even though that $5 million is sitting there, do they consider that part of their budget when they're determining their overall budget?
I don't believe so. The
Okay.
school has their own
It
risk
was totally
management
separate.
fund.
It was set aside totally separate. The city funded it, and it wasn't something that we put money in there. No, to my knowledge, it wasn't.
Yeah,
So it's just like a.
I think it was
a
something that
savings?
triggered that.
Right, it was something that
fund.
triggered it,
Yeah.
but what I'm
I
saying
don't
is,
recall.
here's what I'm trying to get us to. If we have the money in-house, let's use the money to meet the need. We can discuss later how we get to a better tomorrow. I'm trying to work together here.
I think that's,
Do we have
I
a
support that.
consensus to look, to have the attorney look into if we can access those dollars to meet the 2.5 million request?
Oh, one more, I have another question, though,
Go ahead.
because this is a new option that was not presented earlier. so
I just thought about it because
Yeah, no, I know. So now
it came
now I'm
back to
asking
me.
questions to
No,
kind of consider.
it's fine.
What's the difference between, again, this is still a one-time solution. So what's the difference between the funding or identifying CIP funds versus the risk management funds? I want to understand the difference in the impact. And to Councilman Hugo's question before about have we identified projects? No, because I asked for the operational impact of any particular projects and I have not received that. Thank you. So,
Go ahead, Mr. Carter, and I think that's valid, but after this, we're gonna move on. But go ahead.
Either one of those options is a one-time solution.
Okay.
All right, the only difference is that money has been sitting, has not been touched by either side for several years.
Okay.
So that won't really have a budgetary impact on either side. Now, I don't know emotionally how that money is tied to anybody, but financially and just mechanically, that money's just been sitting there. Neither side has touched it.
okay.
So that gives you some place that I guess won't impact operations on either side.
Okay, but this is still something that the schools have to agree to as well,
Absolutely.
because
Right.
it's their dollars?
It's, the city holds the
Well,
money. It's
That's
technically,
a little fuzzy to me, is
Yeah.
who actually owns the dollars. The story I've gotten about this money is there was some hiccup that happened sometime in our past.
that's right.
Yep.
That money was allocated there, and it's just been sitting there. And both sides are kind of, walking around it, but scared to touch it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tillage.
Thank you, Mayor. So the question I have in regards to the risk management fund is, number one, I want to find out, who owns it. Number two, will it have any, is it totally separate from the risk management when we think of with workers' comp, insurance claims? So it's something totally different from the cities and from the school divisions?
Yes, it couldn't be
Just a
tied.
separate by itself?
So it's sitting there, yes.
Okay, so I just want,
That I can find any record of, never been touched.
And it couldn't be tied to that. My recollection was it couldn't be tied to that. It couldn't be tied to the city or the school. It was just something that the leadership created, council created to put those dollars in that pool of money. It's sitting there. All I'm asking for is let's just go ahead and make that happen. We don't have to keep going back. You all have indicated the goal is to get with the schools and let's move forward in a collaborative way, built on trust and building a better mousetrap so we don't have to continue to have these situations. I think that's a way forward. Mr. Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Before you ask for the consensus, I've heard the term funding formula used a couple times tonight. That's not a new thing. We had a funding formula with the school system, and the very time that the funding formula was flatlined, it went by the wayside. So just keep that in mind as I would like to think there could be a funding formula so we could avoid this type of situation, but just know that that in itself is not the magic solution.
And for all of our information, if we were to do this, I'm going to call for the consensus, but does that, if it takes a few days for us to put this together, does that impact the schools in getting this $2.5 million? Is that a tomorrow thing that they need to have, or can we get this done and then give them the $2.5 million?
There is a clock ticking on this, but I'm not exactly sure how close we are to the
I
deadline.
think it's August 1st.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can call a special meeting to approve it. That's not a problem.
Can I ask this?
Yes.
All right, the way the language is in the actual ordinance, it reads, from the 2027 Capital Improvement Fund budget to the FY27 General Fund budget for inclusion in the local share authorized by this ordinance toward the school's budget. I would suggest that you just strike the Capital Improvement Fund language, insert the Risk Management Fund language, and move forward as we intended to move forward. Now, we still got to work this out with the school. If they don't agree, yeah, we're going to call another meeting. We're going to figure out something different. But if they agree, then all said and done, we move forward.
Okay.
Will we have before, the consensus is if we're moving forward with the risk management, or is the consensus, will you provide us any type of information like you provided for these other considerations ahead of time, or we don't have time for that? Because I would feel more comfortable agreeing to consider the risk management plan.
Okay, but we trying to find a solution here.
I know,
And
and this is
I
a new
understand, but
solution, so-
one of the things is we have to move up front. What he is just saying is, for tonight's purpose, strike the language, we put it in place, and then we go to the schools and say, hey, look, if they agree not to do it, then we back at square one.
Do we
That's
have to
what he's
name
saying.
in that ordinance, in the resolution?
He was talking to striking the language and
Do we-
just changing.
Can we strike the language and not name CIP or risk management?
You got to get it from somewhere because the
So
budget's
you
already
have to
set.
name,
It's coming from risk management.
You got to get
because I'm
money
not
from somewhere. We can't create new money. You got to get it from
you know,
somewhere.
I'm just asking because I feel like it's going to lock us in, and if it's not a valuable option, the other option is closed. So that's why I was asking.
If it doesn't, we just change it. So I'm going to call for the consensus. We need a consensus to proceed with
Risk management instead of capital improvement fund.
correct. Do we have a consensus? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye. Okay, we got 4 people that agree with it. So
So remember that.
if the schools agree with it, then we move forward. If not, we do not. Okay.
So we changed that to risk management.
Okay. So we do have a quick need for a closed session, but I think in the closed session, I would ask that we not spend a whole lot of time. We have met, well, we'll tell you what it's about. But go ahead, read the closed session motion.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A8 for the purpose of consultation with the legal counsel employed by the city regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice specifically related to legal options to address violence in the city.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dotson's absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillett?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're in closed.
That to the best of his or her knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dotson's absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillett?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. This meeting is adjourned, and we'll reconvene in 10 minutes.